Hi guys, I like to walk every single day. I also like drinking water every single day, and I like to avoid sugar because I like to try to stay healthy. If this sounds like you, I invite you to put your shoes on and take a daily walk with me. Guys, today I have a story that absolutely scares the crap out of me because I think it's a scam that's going to affect each and every one of us at some point or another in the future. Dan Smoker was taking his family on a trip from Denver International Airport to London for a vacation. He had a whole itinerary planned, a whole bunch of different locations, and this trip was going to run him close to $20,000. All of a sudden, his flight gets canceled last minute. Dan reaches out to United Airlines customer service number, their official number, by the way, and he asks them if they can maybe rebook him on one of their sister airlines. He's speaking to a girl, and after a handful of minutes, she actually transfers him to a guy named David. David assures him that he's going to get him on a flight to where he needs to go, and he upgrades his seat assignment, and then he ends up letting him know that unfortunately, the $18,000 has accidentally been charged to Dan's card anyway, but David assures Dan that he'll go ahead and he'll set the refund so that it happens within 24 to 48 hours. This is good enough for Dan, so he and his family are going about their merry way, and after a couple of days he realizes no refund. He starts to call up to United, and apparently when he calls up to United, they never quite understand where he's coming from in his argument, which will make sense in a moment. So check this out. Months go by. He decides to call Steve on Your Side. Now, who is Steve on Your Side? Steve on Your Side is one of the local news guys there in Denver. We have something called 3 on Your Side here in Arizona, and what it is it's a guy at the local news station that each week will have a show on how he helps people get out from companies that are trying to scam them. So Steve reaches out to United, and he gets Dan to send him the refund email that David sent to him.
Because when I read that refund email, I spotted red flags almost immediately. Like, the email didn't come from a United email address. The format is weird, some numbers with zeros in front of them, dollars always listed in USD, dates with the day in front of the month. I figured Dan had been taken advantage of. Thought maybe he'd Google the number for United, a common way that thieves trick people. But he didn't.
Steve quickly realizes that this email is not from United. It's from some third-party company called Airline Fare, right? And he quickly realizes that Dan is not going to get a refund because Dan got scammed. Dan Smoker called a woman at the actual United Airlines customer service. And even though on his cell phone, it shows that they spoke with each other for 3 hours and change.
They show as a 13-minute call. And they say that at that point, I had dropped off and they don't have any further recording. He got put on hold by that person. It was a female. And then the next person that come back was David.
Now, the reason this scares me is that a lot of big companies have outsourced their customer service. So you're not really talking to somebody there in the States. A lot of times you're actually talking to somebody that's in India, the Philippines, fill in the blank. And a lot of times these very people that are helping you with customer service, a lot of times they sound like the same people that call us all the time trying to scam us. And that's what freaks me out. Guys, I get called, and I'm not exaggerating, about 30 to 40 times a day on my cell phone. As a matter of fact, in order to stop with all the phone calls, I had to go into my settings, and I actually had to set it up where the only calls that come through are people that are in my contacts. Now, the reason this sucks is because every now and then you might have somebody that calls, and it might be a call that you actually want to take. So I've already limited myself to, in the future, I can't even accept an important call. It won't ring because of these scam artists. And you might say, well, Jesse, why don't you check? And maybe you can turn that setting off now, because it's been months, because I've had it on for going on 7 or 8 months. Guys, I'm not exaggerating. Even when I turn it back on, it immediately gets 30 or 40 phone calls a day. So in a weird way, they are already using cyber warfare against me. What do you mean, Jesse? Well, one of the proponents of cyber warfare, one of the weapons they can do is they can overrun a system. Now imagine if instead of 30 or 40 people a day calling me, imagine if they had 30 or 40 people calling me every single minute of every single day. They could get it to the point where your cell phone would be damn near inoperable for you. Could you imagine? Now, apply that same sort of tactic to your banking system or to an airport or anything. A lot of times, cyber warfare is not necessarily them getting into a system and shutting it down. A lot of times it involves them overwhelming a system and shutting it down. So to this day, your boy can't even have phone calls coming through because of these telemarketers. Now here's the scary thing. I'm guessing there's a good chance that some of you are in this same boat now. And even when you pick up your phone and try to reason with them, letting them know that, hey, you're calling me during my work hours, can you take me off your list? They won't. They refuse to. As a matter of fact, now that you picked up, now they know that's a good phone number, your phone calls are actually gonna go up. Is that crazy or what? I wish I could tell you I was exaggerating. I'm probably underplaying it. I probably get more than 30 to 40 phone calls a day. A little side note to that, they can spoof a number. So in Dan's case, he had the call log to prove that he was talking for 3 hours, which means this was an inside job. Somebody scheduled him or transferred him over to the scam person named David, right? It had to be that. But in reality, you can hang up your phone and then they'll call you back within a minute and they can spoof it so it looks like it's from United Airlines at that same phone number. That's what's so scary. Now, one thing the news video didn't go over, but I'd be really interested to know, is did David sound like he had an accent? Did he sound like he was maybe from another country? Because if so, at least you could tell people in the future to listen out for weird accents, right? Again, I don't know how that would have helped in this scenario because Dan actually called the official phone number, right? But here's the reason I mention that. You can understand if someone's foreign, you can hear it in their voice, right? And your gut might be able to pick up on that and say, you know what, I'm not giving you any information, and you might be smart enough to hang up the phone. But in the future, with AI, they're going to be able to mock the most all-American voices you can imagine, right? So when you hear my voice, it might sound like it's 110 degrees and I'm panting like crazy, right? But I don't think you hear my voice and think, oh, that's somebody from India or Pakistan. You can tell it's an American voice. Well, in the future, those same people, instead of talking to you, they're going to type answers into their computer, and then the computer is going to speak to you in an all-American voice. This means that we're all going to eventually get screwed. And I'd like to know your guys' thoughts on it. I think one of the best advice bits that I heard recently was from a gentleman that said, it might not be a bad idea to diversify your money. For example, let's say you have $25,000 in your bank account it might not be a bad idea to have maybe $8,000 in a credit union, and then the rest of the money maybe split it up between 2 different bank accounts. That way, if they ever get a hold of one, maybe they don't get a hold of the whole enchilada. With that being said, it's such a scary world that we live in. Advice that's good one day might not be worth a hill of beans the next, because we're all connected. And if ChatGPT ever finds a way to find out the information on one account, he probably already has the information for the others. Oh my God, we're screwed. My cable bill, about a year and a half ago, I was having an internet connection issue. And I called, and it was part of their 24-hour customer service line, right? Sounds really convenient when it's midnight and you want to watch TV and your cable's been disconnected or something. And so I call, and you could just tell right away you weren't talking to somebody in America, you were talking to somebody overseas, and you're giving them a lot of private information. What if they like to double dip just like Americans do? What do you mean, Jesse? Well, Bob, think about this. If somebody's making $5 an hour working for Cox Communications from their home in Pakistan or India, and all of a sudden they can be a part-time worker with the scam in the very next building over, and they double their money. So instead of $5, now they're making $10 an hour, and all they have to do is give your personal information to the scam artist next door. It just seems to me like we're really leaving ourselves vulnerable, because darn near every company uses these offshore companies for their customer service. They outsource, if you will. I think that's going to end up killing a lot of people, because every time people get scammed out of money, not everyone's going to be able to reach out to Steve on your side from Denver Local News number 9. And that's the problem with the 3 on Your Side team here in Phoenix. They do one show a week, and it usually ends up being where they get the person back their money from the company that's scamming them. You follow me? But here's the problem. I'd be willing to bet that Steve on Your Side probably gets thousands of requests, which means, mathematically speaking, most Dan smokers never probably end up getting their money back. So I guess instead of using a debit card, use a credit card so you have a little protection. But it really sucks for a person like me who doesn't really want to have a credit card. What a pain in the butt. IMCC says, I have a feeling that this is not an isolated incident. We're only hearing about this because the guy went to the local news about it. IMCC, I totally agree with you. And the only reason that he got action done is, again, because he made local news about it. Otherwise, the United Airlines was probably just going to let him get screwed. And even then, do the bad guys ever give that money back? Or does the bank or whoever, the credit card, do they just absorb that? Because no matter how you look at it, somebody has to absorb that loss. This is why I really wish we could do something about the people in India. They are literally calling our senior citizens every day trying to scam people. And the thing that's scary is that as we get older, we start to slip, people. You might be really on top of your game now and be able to sniff out a con artist. But do you feel confident you're going to be able to do that in 10 or 15 years when you start having a hard time remembering what your middle name is or how old you are? I think it's scary. I think we're going to get taken. MC 333-777 says, I travel a lot. Try to call any major airline or any big corporation's 800 number, such as banks, Amazon, etc. Chances are it's an offshore call center that'll pick up the call. And guess what? The customer rep's cousins work the next building over, which is a scam call center. I watched a video about the drinking water and the food vendors of India. And one thing you quickly learn out there is that it's not very sanitary. I would not recommend going to India and eating the street food unless you've got good health insurance, right? You can get really sick. But another thing you can't help but notice is there's so much poverty and there's so many people for every square mile. It just looks unreal. I could totally see somebody doing whatever they have to do to keep their family fed. And if that means scamming some unknown American that they're never going to have to deal with, why wouldn't they do it? And for every one of our companies to just have these people have access to our accounts, does anybody else see that this is going to be something that regularly happens more and more? How much personal information do the Indians already have on each and every one of us? We're always worried about China breaking into our systems. China doesn't even have to. They could probably just buy it from the Indians. How scary. Rhonda Thompson, 4303, says, it sounds like the United agent switched his call switched his call after 14 minutes to the scammer directly. It sounds like an inside job. That's what's so irritating. Instead of hiring an American for 15 or 20 bucks an hour, United gives this job to a person in India for $4 an hour, right? Who cares that the only one at risk isn't United? It's the customers. Absolutely unacceptable. I think companies need to start bringing these jobs back to Americans. And then, like I said, in the future, it's not even going to be an Indian. It's going to be a rich Indian that's smart enough to have a bunch of AI bots that can speak perfect English and take our seniors for their life savings. Malcolm Dean says, if United Airlines can't even ensure their own customer service is secure, that's crazy. Malcolm, here's the thing. They might have 1,000 of these situations every year, and it behooves them not to let us know about any of them. Because if you knew that they had 1,000 of these instances every year, would you dare put your credit card information on United's website ever again? Would you ever want anything to do with United if you knew that this stuff happened every single day? I think this happens every single day. It's not the way it used to be. What a great name. It's not the way it used to be says, what happens when you outservice all your customer service and IT work? This happens. That was a great comment. These are things that could have happened with Americans as well, but at least with Americans, you know that we're going to be able to potentially get them through an investigation and put them in prison. What can you do with somebody that's on the other side of the world? And again, the only people that are at risk are the customers. If this were me, I would seriously consider ditching United. They need to make a big statement and they need to let people know that, hey, this is what happened and we're never going to do it again. And I believe as customers, we deserve the right to have their books audited. How many people have this exact same complaint as Dan Smoker? You know as well as I do, there's no way he's the only one. It sucks being the only one. No one wants to be on an island. That's why if you're a little overweight, if you're a little bit broke, you need to come up with a game plan. You need a daily walk. I'm your guy. We're the Venters. We walk every single day. So again, if you're thinking about putting on a credit card to pay for your upcoming travel, be careful. Do your homework. Try to be as difficult as you can when it comes to scammers trying to take advantage of you. With that being said, hit the like button and I'll see you tomorrow, friends. Have a great night.